course, there are things that, of course, I can't do without hands and feet that I will regret. I have to accept that. I can't go paddling in the waves of the ocean and feel the water in my feet because I simply don't have any feet. There's no way around that. But that doesn't stop me enjoying the water. That doesn't stop me going swimming. It just means that you have to slightly redefine the goal into a format that can work for me. My big passion in life has always been mountaineering. It was in January 1999 when all this began. Myself and a great friend of mine went to climb a mountain in the French Alps called Les Droites by its impressive north face. And it was on that particular climb that our luck took a turn for the worse, and we were caught out by a very vicious and unexpected, unforecast storm, which ended up pinning us to the summit of the mountain for a shocking ordeal that in the end was to last for 5 days and 5 nights, enduring temperatures as low as minus 30 degrees C, wind speeds of 130 kilometers an hour, and snowfall that just about suffocated us in our sleeping bags. When we were plucked off the mountain summit on the morning of the 5th day, in one of the most spectacular and daring helicopter rescues in the history of the Alps. By then, tragically, it was too late for my friend, Jamie Fisher, who had died from hypothermia during the final night. And it was very nearly too late for me too. I was also hypothermic, and I was also almost frozen solid. In fact, my hands and feet were frozen solid. The doctors and surgeons in the end were forced to amputate, and they amputated both my hands and both my feet. I was to wake up from those operations, to look down my hospital bed and see that where my hands and feet had previously been were only now neatly bandaged stumps. I thought that this was the end. I would never lead any kind of meaningful existence ever again. And so that was the beginning of my challenge, was to begin a new life with this new body, and to find new ways of doing things, and to find new ways of taking on fresh challenges. There was no going back. There was no turning the clock back here. There was no way I could, magically make the hands and feet come back. That was just not happening. And so I realized that I had to find some way of going forward. And I spent a long time thinking about the memory of my friend who I'd lost on the mountain, who had died alongside me. That generated a lot of feelings of course, anger and resentment and guilt and all sorts. But also, in the end, it also helped me to realize that actually the most important thing here was that I was still alive. I had been given a second chance. So at first I had absolutely no idea how I was going to be able to live a life without hands and feet. But in the end, it really proved to be quite a simple challenge. It was just a case of, learning to make the most of what I have, rather than worrying about the things that I no longer have. So, learning to use my new body, to use the tools that I have available. And most people have a pair of hands at the end of their arms, which are a fantastically versatile set of tools. I don't have the hands anymore, but I've still got these. I've still got my arms, or my stumps, and my elbows, and they are very versatile too. And so it was a case of just learning to use my body, to do all the everyday things, washing myself and dressing myself and feeding myself. And then also I needed to learn to walk again. First to walk, and then to run. And then I ran my first marathon. I went skiing, snowboarding. I developed a mountain bike. I could cycle again. I went potholing, paragliding. You know, I've just tried everything. I gradually began to take on bigger and bigger challenges. So eventually I did an Ironman triathlon, which involves a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer cycle ride, and a full 42.2 kilometer marathon, which was just an epic 24-hour day on the go, non-stop. But to me, really the biggest challenge was returning to climb once again in the mountains that I loved so much. And that was an amazing experience. It was hard, of course. It was hard physically. It was hard mentally. It was hard emotionally. But it was important to me. It was part of my healing, you know, part of my coming full circle through my grief. Since then, I've been back out climbing in the mountains more times than I can count. But perhaps the biggest achievement I made was climbing the Matterhorn, which is one of the most iconic, instantly recognizable mountains in the world, and one that for many years I never would have dreamt would be possible for someone without hands and feet to climb. But again, I just took it like any other challenge. I just took it one step at a time, tried things out, failed, tried new things, just put in place all the things I needed, the equipment and the training and the knowledge and the people, until I finally found myself in a place where I was in the right place at the right time with the right people, the right equipment, the right weather forecast, and suddenly everything fell into place. And climbing the Matterhorn without hands and feet for me that day was easy. To be honest, the biggest challenge that I've had to face in my life since the accident was not climbing mountains or Ironman triathlons or anything like that. It was having kids. My 3 kids, who are now teenagers, they were by far the biggest challenge that I've ever faced. And climbing mountains without hands and feet pales into insignificance to just bringing up 3 normal, healthy kids. Of course, there were things that I had to learn to do, and perhaps you don't even want to know about changing diapers with my teeth. But, you know, the important thing was that I was there for them as a father, and I could interact with them in a way that any father can, even if I couldn't always, you know, do up the zippers on their jackets or the fiddly poppers on their baby suits, or a lot of things like that I struggled with. But when I speak to my kids now and I say to them, do you miss not having been able to hold my hand when you were young? And they just look at me in horror and say, I can't even imagine you with hands, Dad. That would be gross. Everything that we go through in life is an opportunity to learn and grow and develop. And for me, that represented the end of one chapter in my life and the beginning of a whole new chapter. Everybody has the chance to learn positive thinking and goal setting and taking on challenges. These are ways you can develop your brain, just like you can learn a language. If you only dare to dream big and then start small, work one step at a time, with persistence and patience and diligence, you find you can achieve even the most incredible of things.